Hi, you guys. Yes, I'm so glad this is working. Okay, welcome. We're doing a Q&A live this week. So we're taking the same thing that I do every single week with you, usually on Instagram, where I type out messages. And we're doing it live this week because it's way more fun. So we have Instagram live going. We've got our workshop room going. So either way, if you guys are joining, come say hi. Makes me feel like I am not alone, most importantly, that I'm not talking to myself. But I just wanted to do this week because I feel like first of all, there's so much going on. Yeah, and I feel like we could all use a little bit of just community and support and love and just time to hang out together truly. I also feel like sometimes when those questions come in weekly that I am I'm like, oh, dang it. I wish I had just a little bit more time to answer, in a little bit of a deeper way. So some questions are super easy that come in. It's like, what kind of matcha do you use? I'm like, oh, that's so easy. It's, Matchaful. Or what kind of deodorant do you use? Here's a quick thing. Exactly what it is. But a lot of times questions come in that's just a little bit of a layer deeper. And if you guys have been following me for any amount of time, you know that I don't like to just go surface level, really, with anything, with my relationships, with food, with everything. It's everything is connected in my world and with what I do, that I'm just a full believer. Our health is about our physical health, our food, our workouts. It starts there, with basic things of self-care, drinking enough water, moving your body, but it's also about mental health, and it's also about emotional health, and it's also about our relationships, and it's also about setting boundaries for ourselves. And more than anything, it's about just knowing yourself best. And so whenever I do Q&As, I sometimes get questions of what I do. Hi guys, thanks for saying hi. Oh, I love you too. It's so sweet. Yes. So yeah. So I just want you guys to know that is always my filter when I answer things, is that while it may be a question about me, I know what you're really asking is for you, and how to maybe take what I do. That's my hope, at least. Take what I do and then apply it to you and your life and your circumstance and what feels good to you and what feels aligned to you. And I think above all, that is the most important thing. Okay? So we got a bunch of stuff, a bunch of questions coming in. So just know that we're going back and forth between two screens. So fun. And I did get a ton of questions that came in overnight that people asked. But first, let's just check the tech. Can everybody see and hear on both sides? Yeah. So we're going to say welcome. I know there's probably a way to pin a comment, but I don't really remember at the moment. It's also really funny. I feel like when you watch people do lives and they're trying to type, but let's see if I can do this. Ask me anything. I wonder if that's so loud. Live. Okay, cool. So if you're here, yeah, come say hi. Everyone can see and hear. Cool. Okay, so I do not want to waste a minute of your time, honestly. I know that we are all busy. We've all got stuff going on. I want to make this super helpful. I am willing to answer as many questions as we can get to, and I want to give priority if you are here live. So if you're here live and you have a burning question, then throw it out there and we can definitely start there. And if not, come over. Yeah. So we're going live on both. If you're on the workshop webinar and you would prefer to watch on Instagram live, it looks like, you guys know, bandwidth is so weird these days. It looks like it's working great on Instagram live. So I am going to try and record this too. So it's totally up to you where you want to see and participate and ask questions. Okay. Anyone burning question they need to start with? No. Okay. Also, okay, we're going to jump in. Oh, there's such juicy ones. I'm so excited. These are ones that also have been coming up a lot in the last couple weeks. So just over time, I've noticed these questions come up over time. Also, just one thing before we start today too, that my program Simply Real Life closes tomorrow. And so some of the questions that come in may be related to that. So that's my 6-week program to help people get back in tune with their bodies, stop doing the all or nothing mentality with their health, and truly start to take your health from start to finish in all the areas that I just talked about. So your mental health, your emotional health, your physical health, how they're all connected, our relationship to food, and then talking through all the different things and the ways they are connected and how the process looks to actually get more in tune with your body. Like, what does that actually mean? Because I believe that everybody does great and better with real food, but there are so many individual differences in terms of types of food and timing and the best way, like even like digestion and your age and your life stage. There's so many different factors that come into play in terms of like finding the best way that's going to work for you to show up more fully in your life. So that closes tomorrow at 12 p.m. Pacific. So just know some of the questions will relate to that, some will not. So we're really going to be able to talk about any and all of these things. And if I missed your question, I promise I'll go through and scroll. Okay, so let's start out. The first one that came in, which is actually so funny, it's been like multiple times coming in, is like, can I explain a little bit more about hair washing? Like how I have gone from I used to wash my hair every single day. I know this is such a shallow question to start out with, but hear me out because it does connect to more things. So hair washing, how I went from washing and drying and styling my hair every single day to now I wash it once a week and blow dry it once a week after I wash it. And I feel like it is just getting so much better. One, it's way more efficient. I don't have time. I'm a mom. I run a business. It's like I really don't have time to do a lot of like, beautification things. I'm so much more a fan of like taking really good care of your skin, right? And take good care of your health and take good care of your internal body. And that is where beauty, I think, starts from. So in terms of like just overall health, hair, okay? So there's actually a really big similarity between your hair and like your scalp and your skin. And one of the biggest misconceptions about skin is that we want to like wash off the oil and get out the oil and the dirt. And a lot of this is the way that we have been programmed by the media and messaging and different marketing campaigns around products that really actually just strip the skin of its natural oils. So think about this with like your face care stuff and also your scalp. So what you do when you're actually stripping the skin of oil, your skin is needing to produce twice as much oil to really like compensate. So when you go from a place of washing your hair every day or like washing your face every night, and it's a cleanser that is really stripping of the skin, which most traditional cleansers are, unless you're using something more like an oil cleanser, like a natural oil cleanser, it actually helps your skin health and makes your skin not have to compensate. So same theory applies with hair washing. If you're doing it every day, your hair is going to get more and more greasy because you are not allowing the natural things that need to happen to have your hair and your scalp be moisturized and not flaky and not dry, and you're not stripping the oils. So that's the principle behind washing your hair less and wanting to get to a place where you do that, because it's just more efficient if you're busy. Like, it takes freaking forever to wash and dry your hair, and then if you're going to style it, like, no thank you. I only have time to do that once a week. And then I'll just curl or do little touch-ups in between. Like today, I'm like, okay, if I'm going to be hanging out with people, what a rarity these days, that would be something I think about. So the process basically is just that you start slow, right? Starting slow. Maybe if you're going from every day, first of all, realizing the bigger picture here of what's happening. You're trying to retrain your scalp to not be overproducing oil, so you don't need to keep over washing it. And then starting to use products that are a little bit more gentle and naturally based. So getting out a lot of the chemicals and the emulsifiers and the stuff that like gives you that soapy sudsy thing. And the soapy sudsy thing on our face that we've been trained is how we know it's clean. That's not true, right? It's just, that's a lot of marketing and things to keep us addicted to products and chemicals that we keep needing to use as much of them as possible over the course of our life. So it takes some time. So I would go from like every day to maybe you tried every other day, and if you can go every other day, then maybe you can go 2 or 3 days, or maybe you have a couple days where you're not on a Zoom call, or you're not, in the office, or you're not really seeing people, or over the weekend, like you're going to have kind of like a spa weekend, internal weekend. That would be a great time, right, to practice. Or you're taking vacation for a week and you don't need to be like on. Those are all really good times to do something like this. And in the in-between, using something like a dry shampoo. So Primarily Pure makes a great one that is so natural, like you could almost basically eat it. It's so natural. So you just want to think about like upgrading the products that you're using, and then thinking about the overall picture and more thinking about health of your scalp and your hair. And like your hair will show the results, just like your skin will show results when you are eating really well, like eating good quality food and nutrients your body can absorb. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, let me know if you need any clarification on that, but basically it's slow. You want to think about upgrading over time. Use a dry shampoo in the interim, but honestly, it's so worth doing. Again, everyone's hair texture is a little bit different, but I think it can save you so much time and energy, and it's just so much better, can be so much better for your hair and your scalp health. Yeah. Okay. And I have favorites on my favorites page at simplyrealhealth.com/favorites if you want to see like my recommendations of like shampoo, conditioner, things that help with that, the dry shampoo too. Okay, great. Anyone else? Burning question. I want to take you live if you have one and you want to. Okay. All right. Next question was around, smoke. So a lot of you guys are in the Pacific Northwest area, so Seattle and Oregon and California. There have been massive fires this week, I'm sure you know, and just tons of smoke, not really allowing us to go outside. And the question was just like how to deal. How are you doing? How are you dealing? I think this question, a lot of you know how much I love nature, and since becoming a mom, it has been even more paramount for me and even more important to be like getting out every day in some way, shape, or form in nature, because it is so grounding and calming, and just like I can feel my whole body relax. And Noah, my baby, loves it too. So it's something we're taking a walk at least once or twice a day, like getting outside the weekend, like as outside as much as possible, even around the Pacific Northwest when it's rainy and cold, like we're still out there because the fresh air is magical. So needless to say, this past week being inside, not having the option really to go outside because it is so unhealthy. It is, it's been not fun. I think not fun, just the answer. But it's a great question because I actually did this in the Simply Real Life group that we have, an alumni group. So everybody who does the program is an alumni for life. And so I did a little live stream with them when it was like just starting to happen last Tuesday, and I felt so anxious. I was so anxious all day because I knew that I couldn't go outside. It was not safe to be outside. Like it was just not an option. And I felt really claustrophobic in our house, and kind of just like, I also didn't have a lot of childcare. I knew that the program launch was coming up. There's just like a lot of factors. I also like checked in on my hormones, where I was at in my cycle. I'm like, yep, that makes sense. That's the anxious time, like the couple days where I can get a little bit more anxious or things affect me differently. And it was all those things happening. And so the first thing, sometimes it hits me for like a day or two where I'm just like feeling off or weird or anxious or stressed out, which by the way, we all do. Like this is nobody is like totally away from that, but there are ways I think you can learn to like walk yourself through those times. And I think that has been a journey in itself, right? Of getting there, knowing myself well enough to see the signs, the clues, the red flags, the things that I'm like feeling enough to slow down and pay attention versus trying to like power through or to numb or to ignore. That used to be my tendency to go in the past, of just like ignore it, pretend it's not there, distract myself, watch a bunch of TV at night, drink too much wine, like just be like, what's happening with the world? That used to be the way that I was, but that never actually helped me move through things in life that were harder or more challenging. So last week I did a live like with my group, and I was like, hey, here's the thing. So I was really anxious the other day, and here's why. It sounds so silly because I almost feel ridiculous saying it, because I know so many people have it so much worse than I do right now. They have lost their homes. They're going through a lot of grief. There's a lot of loss. There's a lot of pain, in the world right now. And so sometimes I feel like when things come up for me that are smaller, it's not on that scale. It's like I feel even silly admitting it. But I think admitting it just makes us human. It makes us normal. Like we all have emotions and feelings and things that we have in life. And so if it's something that feels big in your heart, it's enough to acknowledge, right? And to and to just let yourself actually feel. This is something that I talk about in the Simply Real Life program specifically. There's an entire week on it about talking about like feeling your feelings and what emotions are, and how we are so taught and trained to stuff everything down and to ignore things and to distract ourselves and to just like never stop for a second because we're afraid of maybe what would happen, right? Or that we just don't know how to actually process emotions and hold space for it, both positive and negative. But like feeling your emotions and recognizing them and being aware is it's the hardest part sometimes of just even noticing them. So I felt it, right? I felt it come up. I felt just like that, like sort of tension, that feeling. I always feel it kind of in my like heart feels like a little bit tight, and my neck gets tight, and I kind of get just like headachy. And one of the things that helps me kind of get out of that space is first just recognizing it, right? Of feeling what's going on and being like, yeah, well, that makes sense why you would feel a little anxious and stuck inside and like, you know, needing a little bit more help this week or whatever it is. And maybe hormonal and, you know, all the things coming together. So for me, the things that work when I feel like I'm in those moments or times in life is to just stop and think, like, okay, like let's just take a deep breath. Why am I feeling this way? Is there anything I can do about it? Recognizing the difference between the things I am in control of and the things that I'm not. And the things that I am in control of, maybe I'll boost those up a little bit more, or, you know, do some extra things that might help me feel really good or help me feel a little bit more calm, even if it's something silly like just essential oils on my hands and I just like sit there and like breathe it in for a second. I was doing a lot of like mint and spearmint, like with all of the intense smoke, because it made it feel like it was fresh air almost. And my little mint after shower spray too. So then I always go to two questions of like, okay, that's okay to feel like this. Like this is normal. So many people do feel like this right now, especially if you have young kids and especially just with all that's going on. Of like, so these are things that I think maybe could help you too. Just sitting there and being like, okay, what is this situation here to teach me? What is there here to notice that maybe is a trigger for me somehow? Or what's going on that's making this feel extra right now? And is there any lesson in this? Is there anything that this is helping show me? And I feel like that perspective, that immediate question always changes your mindset of, instead of being like, why is this happening to me? This is the worst. This is never going to end. Like just the feeling of not being in control. That's always it for me, right? And I'm like, I feel like I can orchestrate and do things and set up my day and, you know, have things run usually for the most part so that I feel really well. I feel really energized and I feel really balanced most days. But like, then there's certain things and circumstances that come in, like coronavirus, like 2020, like the smoke and the fires and things that are outside of our control. And I, you know, in that moment, I'm like, yeah, this is just another way that's showing me that like I always want to be in control. And when I'm not in control, it makes me feel uncomfortable. But it's okay to feel uncomfortable sometimes. You know, it's okay. It's just feeling uncomfortable, and that's all that it is. Yes, you would like to be in control. However, that's not an option, right? So what else is this here to show me? Of like, I'm like, okay, interesting. So I'm still working through my control stuff, you know? Noted. Good to know. So that I know when I feel that anxiety, I'm like, okay, just a control thing. Like, it's okay. We're going to be okay. This is just another example of practicing surrendering, you know? And that helps. The second question I ask in those times and moments are like, what can I be grateful for right now? That like, yes, those things are happening and going on, but what can I be grateful for? What is this going to shine a light on even more? What is this making me feel even more grateful when I look around at things, that we're safe, our house is not on fire, you know, like this is a short-term thing. Eventually it will go away. It's not like the, you know, coronavirus that we're looking at where it's like, we don't know what that will be or when that will look like, and just finding some sort of peace in that of like, we don't know. And even though our brains always want to know and they always want to predict and they always like comfort zones, they always want to know exactly what it is. And just even knowing that, I think acknowledging that, recognizing that can be so helpful and puts you back in the driver's seat of your experience and how you're experiencing your day and your life. And you get to choose the conversations that are happening in your head, and you get to choose your perspective on things. And so I always try to like bring myself back to a place of getting more perspective of like, what can I be so grateful for right now? Even though it's not ideal, it's not perfect. Yes, it's annoying, Yes, I would prefer to be outside. Yes, it's just going to make me appreciate those things even more. That you better believe I'm going to be out there in the rain, in the snow. I don't even care. I'm going to be deep breathing like when all this is gone. And I'm like, okay, it's going to make it even more important and even more of a priority for myself to continue to keep getting outside, because that is the thing that has been grounding me and helping me, especially this year, especially in this season. Does that make sense, you guys? Okay. Anyone else? Question, follow-up question. Come say hi if you're here. Or wave or heart. Yeah, it's just good to know I'm not alone. Okay, so next question. I just have like all these lists of notes. We covered hair washing. We covered talking about smoke and how to deal through things that are maybe not ideal. Okay, somebody asked, let's see, I guess it's sort of on this topic of like the mental and emotional stuff, but she said how to heal underlying anger and emotions that are stopping me from healing. So first of all, I think even recognizing or knowing that there may be underlying emotions, whether it's anger or frustration or pain or grief or guilt or shame, whatever it may be, like just that you can even say that you know that it's there is amazing. And that's the first step truly to like, then, okay, then what do we want to do about it? There's a lot of different ways that you can deal with it. I think it depends on the situation. I think it depends on you. It depends on if you've done any type of like healing work before on yourself, whether that's healing with like just noticing and recognizing what's going on in your head, how you talk to yourself, the thoughts that are happening rapidly in your head. Or it can be something where it's like an actual a trauma of some sort, or a feeling, right? And I believe that all things that happen to us that we are trying to heal from, they are stored in our body, like somewhere. There's usually one area of your body that holds a lot of that pain or that frustration or that loss. And a lot of times people are just not aware enough to really connect to those things, that they have digestive issues, but then there's also an emotional thing going on behind that, or that they had SIBO. And I can speak from experience, like I have had thyroid problems, like hypothyroid that I healed. I then had a couple years later SIBO that then I healed, and then a couple years later PCOS before I got pregnant, which then I healed by a combination of like looking at what's the first surface layer that I could address. Usually it's something physical. Is there anything I can change in my routine, in my workouts, in my food first? That's always the first go-to. Is there anything I can do to kind of help boost my system just overall to promote healing and reduce inflammation and reduce stress? And like, is there anything outlying I can see that's kind of like blinking lights at me, like, yes, pay attention to me, this is the thing. If not, I know that it's time to go like the next layer deeper. So healing from all of these things, I always start there with the most obvious thing, if there's anything screaming. And then it's like, okay, well, how am I feeling emotionally? How am I dealing with life right now? Is there anything that is deeper and more internal and that I feel like maybe I'm holding on to? And sometimes that can take like a lot of layers of like questioning, getting deeper. So I'm a big fan of therapy. I think a lot of people find that is super helpful. I have done that in the past. For me now, I'm at the point where I'm like, if I know something is going on physically, I'm having some sort of physical manifestation, whether that's just like pain in my neck or digestive issues or joint problems, or just feeling lethargic and tired all the time, or adrenal burnout and fatigue. Oh, I've also had that. When I wrote the first cookbook, took me like a year to recover from that. So it is possible. I think the best and most efficient way is like covering it from all angles, from looking at what's going on physically to then also emotionally and then mentally, right? How you're processing through things. And so this is one of the things that we talk about too in the program, is that these are things that like they're tools, and I give you tools that walk through like mentally, emotionally, and physically what are things that are helpful, that do promote healing, that help you feel more grounded, that help you feel more peaceful. And then if it gets to the point where you're like none of those things are working or have moved things, then it is time to seek like some help, healing help. There's so many things. There's energy work and body work, and there's like somatic healing, and there's cognitive behavioral therapy, and positive psychology. There's so many different things, and so it just depends on you, on what resonates with you the most. But I think even the process of moving through things, of like not staying stuck and stagnant, is the thing that is helpful. So no matter what you're focusing on, you're doing something that you are just consciously aware of. Like, I am in a healing state. And you act differently in a healing state than you do in your normal life. Yeah, but it is all encompassing. Okay, are you guys still with me? I honestly, I could just like talk forever. So please let me know, or if you have like follow-up questions or things that you're like, yeah, that's interesting. Fascinating. Okay, somebody asked she asked, what's the first thing to give when you get super busy? And I love this question. It came in yesterday and I had to like sit and think about it, because I'm like, I feel like I have been doing now this work on myself and getting to a place where like wellness is so much more than just your food and your workouts, and your productivity, and your energy. It's so much more. It's what's going on inside and how we show up for the world. So I had to like think about this, and I think like now when things get busy and stressful, I become even more like intense about the food I'm eating, my sleep, and just like workouts or being outside and getting fresh air, because those are my 3 non-negotiables. So this is something I talk about in Simply Real Life. I know a lot of alumni are listening. Yes. So those are my non-negotiables that I know I could do anywhere where I'm traveling. Like if I'm away, if I'm home, if like the day is crazy, if it's not crazy, I can like do those things no matter where I am. But I think the first thing to go, if I'm like being honest, is I don't like, my friendships will take a back seat for sure. Like I'm not great about social time. My inbox is so full. I don't respond to all emails. I don't get back to text messages. I am just like focusing in survival mode. That's what goes. Then also what goes is anything that's like extra or like elaborate. So like, there's dinner that I'm cooking, but it is the most simple thing. Like I know that everybody will eat it. I know it works. I know it's quick and easy. And I use a lot of tools, and I prepare mentally, and I prepare our house so that our pantry is stocked with good stuff, and that we have stuff in the freezer, so that it's not this pressure to perform when I know that I'm like stressed out or busy, or I'm not going to have as much time. And I just don't put the pressure on myself anymore to feel like I have to do it all perfectly. I just don't. I'm like, some things are going to give, and that's okay, because I know the important things for me, if I keep drinking enough water, moving my body some way every day, and eating real food, right? And then those are the things that can keep me stable even when everything else is crazy around me. Yeah. So yeah. And then I would say if I had to pick like another thing that would go, yeah, so in the social stuff, sometimes I include my husband. So time like as a couple is less. If I have to work at night, I'm working at night. If I have to, like stay up a little bit later, but then I just make sure I am still sleeping as much as I need to sleep. So like our time together, connection time, which is probably not great. I would like to have that not be the case, but that is the case right now and currently as we're going through things. It's like that takes a little bit of a backseat sometimes to the things that are currently happening and going on that need the full attention. Yeah, but that has taken a long time to figure out for myself. A lot of mistakes along the way to get there. Okay, let's see. Okay, this question was about natural ways to lower your cortisol. So your cortisol is your stress hormone. I'm sensing a theme amongst all these questions, by the way. So cortisol is the hormone that gets pumped through your body when you are stressed, when you're anxious, when you're going through stuff in life. It's also what gets secreted anytime it's stress that's fake or real. So like stress that's just in your own head sometimes, of like the pressure you put on yourself, the need to perform, the need to show up in a certain way, the need to appear a certain way to others, pressure that you put on yourself to be perfect, pressure that you have from the way that you grew up, the stories that you tell, your limiting beliefs. Like it is this whole world, I think, that it exists inside our head. And so whether the stress itself is real, like it's dangerous, like there's a bear, like there's something that's going to attack you or like jump out, our natural instinct of our body, the fight or flight response, is that adrenaline gets secreted and then cortisol gets pumped through our veins. So that could be the same thing if you get an email that's stressful these days, or if you see something on social media and then like that triggers your cortisol, or same thing like looking at your phone first thing in the morning, even just like blue light and screens and news and noise and all of that can like trigger us into feeling a full-blown stress response. But for so many people, I feel like it's so normal, it's so normal that they just don't even notice it. But you will notice it. So increases in cortisol will make you feel pretty crummy over time. So this is where we see so much, especially with women, just like adrenal fatigue and burnout, and they're just extremely tired all the time because that cortisol gets pumped, and that's also what makes you store fat. It's also what just like puts your body in this overdrive, kind of jumpy, anxious state all the time, which makes it almost impossible to truly like take a beat, to take care of yourself, to set boundaries, to do the things you need to do, because you're always in this like very high anxiety state. So again, it can be a state that you're creating in your own mind with the way that you're talking to yourself, the stories that you have, or it can be real stress going on. So the body cannot discern the difference. So it becomes then very important, I think, just having more resiliency in life of just knowing at least the things that you're maybe making up, right? Or they are not life or death situations, but you're kind of making them that way in your head, of learning how to like bring yourself down a couple levels in that moment, right? So that realizing you're having a physical response that affects things, but also you have the control of like, if you can change your thoughts and how you're feeling and how you're experiencing something. A lot of time it's like shifting your perspective, finding gratitude, like shifting out of that, tunnel vision state and like taking a step back, I think can be so helpful. So natural ways to lower your cortisol, get off your phone, get off things that are making you have that response, even if it's just a response in your head. I would say too, if you notice that over and over again in your life, it may be that there's an underlying thing, so if you feel yourself getting triggered by everything and everyone and everything, it's like there's probably something going on with you and it's not about everything else happening around you. Do you know what I mean? That like, why are you so sensitive to that? What sets you off so much about it? It's usually something within our own selves and has nothing to do with anybody else or what's going on with the world. So lowering your cortisol, like immediate quick things would be just like being aware of your thoughts. What's going through your head? How is it making you feel? And is that actually true? Is that 100% a factual truth? Or is it just something that you're telling yourself? Just a belief you have. A belief is different than a truth. And so like being able to walk yourself through that process of like, why am I getting so like amped up about this? Okay, second thing would just be breathing in the moment, like being able to lower your cortisol, especially before eating. So this is like a huge thing that we talk about in Simply Real Life, of like the process of like going to have a meal that your body can actually digest. You cannot be pumping cortisol through your body. Otherwise, you are not going to absorb the nutrients. You're going to be shoving stuff in. You're not even going to notice that you're eating. You're not aware. You're not mindful or intentional. And it's like we eat so fast and we're on to the next thing, and our brain doesn't even connect that we ate. So it's like little things like taking a breath can actually be the thing that signals to our body to actually relax, So taking like 5 breaths, like deep belly breaths to relax, sends the signal to like hold up on the cortisol. Let's draw that back in. Let's like kind of like reground ourselves, right? So this is a theme, right? This is a theme, is like, how do you find the calm amongst the storm? And I think especially right now, I think so much of it has to do with knowing yourself and your body. So like knowing those things that do set you off, knowing the ways to like help yourself come back. I think a lot of times like journaling can also help with things that you feel anxious about, or cortisol is going high. A lot of times it's just pressure you're putting on yourself. So just getting real about that and figuring out where that is coming from. Like, I'm always a fan of just getting to the root core issue instead of just putting like random band-aids over the top of things and hoping that it will just like disappear, because that's not the way that it works. So I think of them as like, if you're feeling those things and feeling cortisol and feeling like always on adrenaline, or always like on the edge of burnout, or always just like on the edge of a breakdown almost, that it's like, let's look at what's actually going on and let's like start to heal from that point. I just think it's the most productive and the most efficient way. I'm just always a fan of efficient. What's the fastest way to get there that does the job fully without just like covering up in the moment, you know? So there are things you can do. It's like, you can like, you know, do the essential oil tricks. You can breathe. You can just have habits of practices throughout your day of like slowing down and doing an energetic shift of some sort, whether that's breathing, or it's like a face spray, or it's just a moment that you take in quiet for just a minute of your life. You know, there's so many things that you can do. It's figuring out what is going to work for you and the things that make you feel calm and relaxed. It can be different for everybody, but I think everybody, especially now, especially these days, needs moments throughout their day of pause, and moments throughout their day where they can just recollect themselves and ground themselves and just kind of like come back to yourself, come back home to yourself for just a minute, so you can get a clearer view on what's really going on. Yeah, whether it's stuff in your head or stuff in your heart, like it's all connected. Do you guys see this? It's like, it's all connected. It's your stresses and emotions and things that we're thinking about and that we overanalyze, or the pressure we put on ourselves, or the all or nothing mentality. It's like, it's all connected to how we are and how we feel and in what we give off to the world around us. Okay, cool. Okay, anybody have questions? Live questions if you're here? You just want me to keep going? Blitzing through the list? Okay, I'm going to try to like cover, honestly, as many as possible. Okay, next question was about, good one. She said, just about birth control. She's like, I have PCOS like you had. I know that I want kids one day, but not right now. What did you do for birth control before that point? So I am such a fan of getting to the root core, right, of what's actually going on. And that means understanding your hormones and understanding your body as a woman. It is so powerful. It's such a freaking empowering thing to understand, but we are never taught how to understand our bodies. We are taught to be ashamed of them. We're taught to be ashamed like of our periods, and it's this secretive thing. It's this thing that we're never taught actually what's going on and what's normal and what to expect, and that our bodies operate on a 24-day-ish hormonal cycle. Fluctuations each week for 4 weeks in a row, whereas men operate on a 24-hour clock. And all of society and our standards are on that 24-hour clock and cycle. So with women, it has been this thing, which I think now, thankfully, is starting to change, is like, no, that's nothing to be ashamed about. And it's not something that you need to just take a pill for and cover up and like don't talk about and don't think about until you're actually ready to have kids. Because they're finding now that like women, and I was one of them, I was on birth control for so much of like middle school through high school, and I had like all these problems and hormonal things that should have been signs. My doctor was like, oh, it's fine, don't worry about it. I had to find a new doctor, by the way. One of the first things. And I was like, got to a certain point when I was doing so much with food and like thinking about food and looking at food and eating real food. So I was looking at my ingredients and wanting to keep it simple and wanting to keep it like, you know, as nutrient dense as possible without being crazy about it. And then I started to think like, why am I taking something that is artificial hormones, no less, that affect everything else in your body? So for me, it became like a thing of like, I actually don't feel aligned with doing that anymore. That doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel like good. I want to know what my body is doing on its own. I want to know if there are things I need to heal or fix before I even get to the point of wanting to have kids. I know that I want to have them eventually. So for me, it was this process of like, let's look at the bigger picture here versus, again, like that Band-Aid on something and then stuff it under the rug until you get to the point and then deal with it. Because so many women now are finding that they do have issues, and infertility is at its highest, and there's so many things like PCOS and endometriosis, and we have all of these hormonal problems, and even more than just like cases that we can label and things we can say. So many women need to be balancing their hormones. Our hormones are way out of whack because we are missing this general education, just like we miss the general education about just food for real food and what that means and what like real food is and what it's not and how to know. It's the same thing with our bodies and with our hormones. Like we never get that general education of like, hey, here's what's going on. So what I would encourage you to do is to get educated and to just start learning like way before you feel like you might need to, because hormones impact everything in our bodies. And there are so many amazing women that do this work that are like on this mission to teach and train about our hormones and about being women and what that means, and just like getting empowered by knowing what's happening with your body. It also connects to our moods, to our emotions, to feeling anxious, to all these other things that we're talking about today. Like hormones can play a really big role in that. So the first step is always eating real food. That's the first way to naturally balance and bring things back into balance, whether that's hormones or moods or emotions or stress or anxiety. We just want to get to this balanced place. Real food can help with that on the physical side. But when it gets to other things like hormones and emotions, there's an amazing book, and she just wrote a second book that I just am finishing right now. It's so good, called In the Flow by Alisa Vitti. I think it should be required reading for every woman. Just about understanding what's going on so you can actually harness so many of the magical powers that we have as women with our fluctuating hormones. It's not all bad, and it's not stuff that we need to be like, oh, like it's, and starting to even like just understand how empowering that can be, to know what's really going on, so that you're just so much more aware that you can do things like how I was saying when I was stressed and anxious and I checked where I was at in my cycle. Okay, so long story short, before being off birth control, but then also not wanting to get pregnant, not being ready for that, like I tracked my cycle. So that's something that she talks about in the book, In the Flow. She also has a book. What's her first book? Her first book is more geared towards PCOS and endometriosis and women that are currently struggling with their hormones and trying to figure it out. But it's everything of like different foods at different times of your cycles. And I don't think you need to go to the furthest extreme. I think it's just good to be aware of like how your moods will change week to week and your emotions will change, and sometimes you feel so much more outgoing, and sometimes you feel a little bit more internal, and that it's all okay and it's all normal and it's all to be expected. So that's not stuff that's surprising you. So one of the things she talks about in that book is just tracking your cycle, just knowing where you're at, because there's really only like a 3-day window when you could potentially get pregnant, and then you are just extra careful around those times, or use condoms, or use around that time. But it takes a couple months of tracking, right? So there are so many things to do. Yes, thank you, Chrissy. Women Code is her first book, so that's the one that talks more specifically if you're having hormonal issues, things that are off balance. And then her second book, In the Flow, is new. It just came out last month. I'm just finishing. It's so good. I feel like it's just a better, just general guide for what's going on for women. So I would just so encourage you to, if you are younger, if you are not at the point of having kids, even if you are and you're like, what's going on? I know something's off. Like I just think there's so much when it comes to our health that we are not culturally taught in a way that's helpful, and in a way that's empowering, in a way that is actually simple, and in a way that helps us connect all of these dots. Yeah. Okay, Anna says, are there any apps you like to track your cycle? Yeah, there's a great one. There's Glow, there's Flow. I've used them both. I think right now I'm using Flow. I've always used Glow in the past. But there's tons of them. It's like, and they all have different things that you can like input and just track, like how you're feeling that day. Did you get any physical signs? Were you headachy that day? Were you more tired? It's fascinating. It's so fascinating, because what I started to see is that there's so many things that I would start to track that are actually patterns. So I'm like, oh, that is happening every month, kind of around the same time. So then it was easier to predict. So then it's easier to do things to help support yourself in those times and in those seasons, Yeah, so I would just, I'm getting sweaty. That's how you know I'm like getting passionate about it. It's just truly, I would just encourage everyone, every woman really, to read and fully understand and to track your cycle, no matter what stage of life you are in. It's so helpful to know that that's just how we operate, I think. And there's so many beautiful things about that too. Okay, so natural ways to lower cortisol. We did that. We talked about birth control. Let's see. We talked about the one thing to give, one thing that goes when I'm super busy. Let's see. This next one. Oh, great question. She said, and you guys, yes, you guys, I'm just scrolling up to see if I missed any questions here. Okay, so this question was, any advice, like what do you do if your loved ones are unhealthy? She said her in-laws are very obese. Like, how do you handle that? And I just like to, let's just take this question broader of like people that you love, whether it's somebody in the same house as you, or it's your parents, or somebody you're related to, or just somebody that you love, right, and care about, and you have taken you have started educating yourself, you're eating real food, you are thinking about things from a bigger perspective about how all these parts of our life are connected and how these parts of our health are connected. And then you see other people do things that you're like, ooh, do they know? Should I tell them? Like, is this gonna be helpful? And honestly, I think that it is something that, like, when you choose to upgrade your health and to start taking better care of yourself, that is a decision that you are doing for you. And it's something that you can't push on other people. I would just suggest don't push it on other people. The way to hopefully get them to maybe start paying attention is by you being so much in your own body and in your own space, and you being the example of that without even speaking a word. So that goes with kids, that goes with partners. It's like, don't harp on them and push them to do what you're doing, because it's never going to come across in a way that makes that inspiring or fun, or like, oh yeah, you're right, that's a good idea, right? So if somebody is not, we would pause there for a minute. Okay, so somebody is not open to the conversation of wanting to get healthier, and they are not actively either asking you questions, curious about it, feeling like they're engaging with you about it, I just wouldn't go there. It's not your job to do that. I think that if you want to be an inspiration, then you do you. Do you eat the food that you want, eat what makes you feel good, like, and be low key about it. There's no, it does not help to push your views on others. All that does is usually repel them. So I know when Kyle and I first started dating, I think we went on probably 8 dates before he knew that I was gluten-free, because I was like, I don't care. I'm not going to make a big deal. I order what I order. I do what I do. Like, this is just the way that I operate best. And it came up one day, and then I could tell he was like curious. And I had been on other dates, before, where people would be like, what? Like, oh, like, well, I'm still gonna get pasta. They feel like you're judging them, for something that you're just deciding to do. And I think that is where it comes from, right? You have to do it because you want to do it and not judge other people. Right? If they're curious, interested, open, that's one thing. Sure, engage, like, share a little bit with it, but like, go slowly, I think, in those conversations, because people do feel like you are harping, judging, pushing, and that's just the biggest turnoff ever. So I wish people would stop doing that in the health industry, in the wellness industry. It is like, drives me crazy. And what works for one person does not always work. It doesn't work for everybody else. Everybody is so different. We have such differences in our genetics, in our bodies, in the ways that, like, we handle stuff, in the foods that we do better with. Like, some people do great with dairy and like full fat dairy, and they do great with grains, and some people do terrible with them. Some people do great with meat, and some people do not digest it at all. So there's not one way. So pushing your way on other people is just not the answer. Yeah, so if you see people being unhealthy, like, I'd say just keep doing your thing. Keep being you. Keep taking care of yourself. And if they ask and want to engage, most people will not want to engage until they see, like, results, or they see how you've changed, or they see how you're actually less judgmental of them because you're actually being less judgmental for yourself. I think that's a big thing that happens, especially with, like, upgrading to real food. Okay, we have a couple more minutes, you guys. So if anyone has any questions, anything else, burning desire questions, I'm still going to keep going through this list here. Okay, so loved ones that are unhealthy. Okay, this one is kind of goes on that. She said how to overcome comparison to others. So if you guys did not watch my live that I did, the 10 secrets of effortlessly healthy women on Tuesday, I think we have the replay posted on the blog for just this week. Something that I talked about in there of like one of the 10 secrets and the 10 habits that effortlessly healthy women do have is that they do not compare themselves to others, because true health is about knowing yourself best and then showing up for yourself in those ways. So you have to first be aware and intentional with who you are, with what you need, with what you feel best, asking questions. It's an experiment. Like, this is why in Simply Real Life, we do this for 6 weeks, and every week is a particular focus. We start out with food because that is the most important thing. It's the most tangible thing. We have to eat every single day. And so knowing the types of food and the timing of food and what works for you based on your own hunger, based on your own body's cues, not saying you have to get up and eat breakfast, and you have a snack, and then you have lunch, and then you have a snack, and then you have dinner, or like you just intermittent fast all day, and then this, or like be vegan, don't be vegan. It's like all of that stuff is just stuff. It's just noise, and it's clutter, and it's keeping us so disconnected from our own bodies and what we need. Because we have to start paying attention. So this is what I teach in the program, is like how to actually pay attention. What does that mean? It's not like, oh, just, eat a little more intuitively. Like, oh my God, giant eye roll. I used to like hate it when people would say that. I'm like, what does that even mean? Like, intuitively, my body wants chocolate. Like intuitively, it wants to have cereal all the time. So, but I didn't realize that it was like one thing built upon another. That you have to start with real food first and stabilize your blood sugar so that you even have a chance of even telling differences or little tiny shifts in your energy or in your mood based on what you're eating. We have to clear the slate clean first, reset it with just real food, get all of that clutter and noise out of your head so that you can just focus on like eating real food, keeping it simple, and then tuning into like your hunger. What does that mean? It's not a bad thing like we're taught. What does it actually mean when it's calm and grounded? Most people are like on the sugar roller coaster, blood sugar roller coaster, up and down and up and down. That's why most people have to snack and eat all the time, because their blood sugar is all over the map. They're trying to follow somebody else's blueprint for eating healthy versus stopping and actually saying enough of that. What happens if I just get quiet, if I reset with real food, keep it that simple, and then over the course of 2 weeks, so we spend 2 weeks on this in the program of like what that means and like what real food is and what it's not and how you can tell. And so many people in that process they're like, oh, I was doing things just that were so automatic and so living in autopilot. And that is the best way to get the most disconnected from your life and to feel disconnected and like you're floating, that nothing's really working, and you're always kind of blah, and you're always just in the middle, and then you're trying to be all or nothing. So you're either all in or you're all out, and you're either doing really well or you're doing horribly, and then beating yourself up and you have shame about it. It's like every diet cycle ever. So we have to stop. We have to stop doing that. It's not the answer. Again, like, let's get to the root core thing. Let's get to the actual thing. No more Band-Aids. No more like trying to fill a bucket and there's like a hole in the bottom. You keep pouring in and doing all the things. I'm doing all the right things. And this person told me to do this. And this person I follow on Instagram does this. And this, it's like, it's so exhausting. No wonder we're all exhausted and have cortisol and adrenal and anxiety issues, It's like we are so taught to look outside of ourselves for the answer, but our bodies are so wise and they are so smart. We just need to give them half a chance. So studying things, stabilizing them, this is what we do in the first 2 weeks of the program, and then bringing in your mental place and your emotional stuff and feeling your feelings and emotions and navigating and walking yourself through life and through normal days and normal seasons of like, what happens with this? What's my food doing here? How's that connected to how I feel? My emotions, what are the signals that my body gives me when I'm tired, when I'm hungry, when I'm stressed out, when I'm anxious? And then what can I do about it? Right? So it's this entire picture that nobody ever talks about and nobody ever teaches, that this is why I teach it, because I'm so passionate about it, and I'm also so sick of the way that we learn, because I spent over 20 years of my life trying to do all the right things, and it never got me anywhere, and it made me more disconnected from my body, with a terrible relationship to food, always beating myself up, always living in all or nothing, trying to be perfect, and it just was this unachievable thing that then led to the things that I had. led to hypothyroidism because I was so stressed and in such a stressful season in my life, but I didn't even know it. If you would have asked me back then, was I stressed? I had no idea. I thought it was just normal life. But now when I look back on it, I'm like, oh, I was so misaligned. I was not doing like the work in the world. I was in a relationship that was off, like there was all these signs that I just was not paying attention to because I was so focused on what other people were doing. I was so focused on like, what's the right way to do, to eat, to be well, to work out, to do this, like to live my life, to what I want to do in life. Like everything was just focused on these things when I was just missing the point. So it then leads to disease, right? It leads to stuff going off in our lives and getting triggered by things. And it's just like this physical, mental, and emotional thing. It's our life. It's how it's like we need to take better care of ourselves. We need to be better protectors of ourselves, of our bodies, of our emotions, of our spirits, of our hearts, because it's all connected. And I'm getting like really sweaty and really worked up because it's true. We have to stop doing the way that we're culturally conditioned and programmed around our health and around our mental health and our emotional health. And like, it is so backwards and it's so infuriating to do and to be living, but it does not have to be that hard. It doesn't have to be that way. It can be simple and it can be effortless, right? You get to the point where you can fully understand and read your body and fully understand what's going on from all capacities so that you can start to heal more. And then when you have things that come up, whether it's, hypothyroidism or SIBO or PCOS or like those things that have happened more recently for me, it's like, oh, it's like quick. I'm like, oh, okay, I know what's going on. I know this. I know my body. I know what I'm doing now. What else? How else could I like raise that up? What else is like getting in the way? What else can I do? All right, taking care of physical stuff. Okay, what else is going on emotionally? Let's take a quick scan. Let's do all the practices I talk about in the program. Like it is a continual moving, breathing thing, your health and your relationship to yourself. And so having the tools to do that is the most important thing, which is why I teach and empower women to do that and how to do that and what that means. So that's why when I say it closes on Friday, I just want you to know that it's an option. Like whether it's with me or with somebody else, I just want you guys to just start taking more responsibility for your health, but not in a way that's heavy and that weighs on your shoulders and is pressure filled, but in a way that's actually more freeing. Because you carry yourself and you take yourself wherever you go. So if you can understand and you're taking yourself wherever you go, and every year you go through life, you're a little bit more wise, you're a little bit more connected, you a little bit care less about what other people are doing or thinking or eating or drinking or whatever, because it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how you feel, how you think, how you're moving through your life. So when I say that it's like the most life-changing work you can do, that's why. It's not that it's this hard process and it's miserable. It's actually really fun because it's so freeing to let go of all that crap. Let go of that crap, like it doesn't matter and it's not helping. And so doing the same things over and over, but then expecting a different result, that is crazy. And doing the things that have gotten you here, right? To the place where you probably, if you're here and if you're in this community, you are probably so much more aware and so much more intentional, and you at least know about real food and you're trying and you're doing it, But what got you here to this point is not what will get you there. When you're starting to see things come up in your life that are blocked, so you get frustrated, or when life doesn't go your way and when the world is melting outside, it's like, how do you handle that? And a lot of times I truly believe that those things show up to help light the way, to help show us something that we were missing or not seeing or stuffing under the rug or not dealing with. And like, this is our chance and our opportunity to not do that anymore. Because when you can let go of that stuff, it's just, you can just start to rise. It's so empowering. It's so like life-changing. You have more resilience and more understanding of your own self that you carry with you. And then, by the way, the thing that nobody talks about is how that impacts everybody around you. If you have kids, if you have babies, if you have a partner, if you have people that you are close to in your life, a sister, a friend, aunts, uncles, parents, in-laws, being that example, do you know how much that would change everything around you? If there was at least one example in your life of somebody doing that and living life on their own terms and more connected to themselves, and that is what healthy was, and that they felt so much more free and they were so much more fun and joyful, and they loved food and they loved taking care of themselves, and they loved, so that because they knew that doing that would help them pour out to others. And those are the people that are the most aligned and the most vibrant, right? Yeah. So like you can see, and I'm going to put this right here so that you guys all have it, just because it closes on Friday. I honestly, like, if it's with me or if it's with somebody else, I don't care. I just know that this is the type of work that will change your life, for those that are willing. And a lot of people are not ready for it. They don't want to do it. They're not interested. They just want the quick fix. They want to stay stuck in all or nothing. They think that whatever got them here is going to get them there. If they just put a little bit more effort and a little bit more willpower and a little bit more pressure on themselves, that they'll eventually get to the place where they feel happy and healthy and calm and more effortlessly healthy, right? So it's at simplyreallifeprogram.com. Somebody was just asking that. I'll tape it in. And it's only open until tomorrow. Yeah, but can you see how this, like, it's all connected? So you get to the point where it's like asking some of these questions, right? And it kind of all leads back then to you, of what is going to feel good to you, what's going to feel energized to you, what is life-giving to you. And thinking of that impact even generationally, right? When I talk about like things in the baby guide too, it's like, I want more parents to know and to acknowledge that could be so powerful, such a way to change, right? Not only us and our lives, but everything that comes after that. Of just being a living, breathing example of like what true health is. Because when you are filled up and connected and aligned in your life, that's when you can give and serve and pour and show up for others. That's when you can be a blessing to other people. That's when you can take other people and help them elevate and help them raise up and help them live their life in such a better and more freeing way, right? Yeah. Okay, I'm getting the warning that we're like almost at the hour mark. Does anybody have any last minute questions for me? I can stay here on the webinar workshop if you guys registered for that, like registered ahead of time. I don't have a time limit on that one, but on Instagram we definitely have a time limit. Okay, any last questions on Instagram? Those of you that are here. Oh, here's a great one from Anna. Says, how do you handle eating habits when going to somebody else's house? Such a good question. So I plan ahead, right? Like proactively. I also think that if anybody is going to host me, I want to be helping that host in kind. So I always offer to bring something, and I will always bring something that I know that I can eat and that I will love and enjoy. I also really like always bringing the salad, because I think not a lot of people know how to make salads, or everybody thinks salad tastes better when somebody else makes it. And so having it be almost like an entree style salad that has lots of good stuff in it. So if that's the only thing that you eat and feel good about eating, then great. I also think seeing the world through the lens of real food changes so much and gives you so much more freedom to do things like going out to restaurants and going out to other people's houses, because if it's something that's food that is cooked from scratch, then it means it's real food. So you don't need to worry about if it's butter or if it's rice or grains or it's bread. It's like if somebody's making it, then it's real food. You do not need to be so nitpicky about that. But if you have allergies, right? If you have sensitivities, I have to be gluten-free. So when I go, people know that usually about me. I mean, it's what I do, right? So I am lucky in that way. Most people know that. And I will have a lot of times that people will cook out of the cookbooks, so it just depends if it's you knowing them and where they are at with their definition of what healthy is. I think it's just always helpful to be the one to bring something. to their house. And if you have things that your sensitivities or allergies, it's just a nice thing. You're not putting the pressure on other people. But then I also think there's a component too of like being able to enjoy your life and like enjoy experiences, and whatever somebody is serving you from their heart, it is more about that than being so focused on the food. So can you be there and can you show up to that dinner being fully present, right? More focused on the time that you are with the people that you're with, instead of worrying and fixating about the food, about the conversations in your head about the food. And I know this because I used to be this way for so long. You guys know my story. I just had a terrible relationship to food. I was obsessed with being healthy. Now it's called orthorexia, this over obsession of having to need it be a certain way, like going vegan, like just very restrictive and very controlling over my food because I wanted it to be as perfect and as healthy as possible. And so things like that used to trip me up, and I would have stomach anxiety and just not know how to work through it, and just never really have a meal sitting there and actually enjoying the moment versus being distracted by everything in my head and what was I going to go work out to do after, and just like very disordered thinking about it. So I would just encourage you to see that from all sides of like the food, physical stuff, and then, okay, the mental and emotional stuff of that question or that situation. How could you go into it feeling more prepared, and what is the intention of that night or that dinner or that meal? Is it to be and connect with people that you love? Well, then good, focus on that, and then it doesn't matter what you are eating or not eating from your plate. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay, cool. Okay, last call. Any other questions? I know there was just like a few things that we didn't get to. I think we like covered quickly, like matcha. My favorite brand is Matchaful. Matcha is a really important thing to be aware of the source and the quality of it, because if not, it can have like lead and a bunch of other stuff in it that you're not probably going to want to put in your body, at least if it's something going to be daily over time. I have a big blog post on the blog. You can just search for matcha. There's like a matcha guide and the winter bevy guide and a bunch of stuff that can walk you through that. And then somebody asked favorite essential oil brand. I just have always used doTERRA, but I think Young Living is also great. You just, again, want to look at a place that sources their stuff well, and depending what you're using it for, right? If it's going like internal in your body, you're going to want to get stuff that's much higher grade and food grade versus something that you're just kind of diffusing into the air. So yeah, I think there's a lot of great brands. Those are not the only two, but those are just the ones that I tend to. I just have a friend that used doTERRA, and so that's just what I ended up using. But I think Young Living is also a great option too. Yeah, and there's a bunch of different places. Just do your research on sourcing. Okay. Let's see. Somebody did ask a question, how did I know that I was ready to have children? And I actually do have a full series on the blog. So if you're interested in that, just look up Simply Real Health and Pregnancy. And I have like a 3-series post of like how I was really anxious about it, how I didn't know if I was ready, what made me kind of like shift and change my mind, how the process went, the full emotional spectrum of it. So that's on the blog too. I think it's like part 1 or pregnancy announcement, something like that. You can look it up. But yes, again, so much of this is like all connected, right? How we are with our food is how we are with our emotions, is how we are with life events, with stresses, with things that go on. So I just really want to encourage you guys as we wrap up today, that I just want you to like do something, especially in this time, in this season of just being able to do something, like find somebody that can help lead you through this work, whether that is through some sort of healing modality. Only you know the things that you need and the ways that you like being supported and the type and style of the teacher that you like. You may find my voice annoying. There's so many things I think that come to be, but I just want you to know that there are things that out there that you can do to start living your life in a more cohesive way, in a more healthy way, and that's not just only your food and what you're doing to work out or not. That it's like this all-encompassing picture, that the sooner you can start to take some ownership of that, and the sooner you can start to take some action on that, I think your life is going to just feel so much more like your own. You're going to feel so much more free and in control and calm. And it's not perfect. It's like still have times and moments and days where I'm like, whoa, what is going on? Or things kind of surprise me, but I can always bring myself back to good because of the work that I've done. And I think it just takes some reprogramming of the way that our brains are and the way that they fire. But it is possible, and it's not as hard as you think it is. It's actually a really fun thing to do and to learn more about yourself. It's like personality tests, it's like the Enneagrams. Like that stuff is so helpful, right? It helps your awareness. It helps you move through life. So imagine doing that on a scale that takes it from your food, your emotions, your feelings, your relationships, your hormones, everything, right? And starts to connect all these dots. So that's just what I hope for you. It's what I hope for each one of you that are in this community of just whichever way works for you, just continue to do something and to become more aware and more intentional and more kind to yourself and more loving and more gentle. And just know that we have so much hard wiring at work sometimes that prevents us from really getting to where we want to be. So sometimes it takes a total restructuring, a clearing of the table so we can like reset it in a much more foundational way. Okay. I love you guys so much. Thank you for being here. This is like so much fun. We need to do this more. Yeah. See, I get way too wordy to answer. Just type stuff on Instagram. So yeah, we should probably do this like once a quarter, I think. But yeah, just final reminder to Simply Real Life program closes tomorrow. So if it's something that you're thinking about, there's a bunch of different payment plans. There's a bunch of different options. There's a self-guided option. There's live ones. There's options that you're coaching with me. It's really the only time of year I take on personal clients. So if you're feeling like you need a little bit more support, this would be the time to do it. And I'm so excited to see you guys on the inside. And I am just so thankful for each one of you. Like whether wherever you've come from, if you've been a follower for a long time or a short time, I love you. I appreciate you so much. This is why I want to do what I do, is that you guys make it so fun. And I honestly have the best community of women ever. So please let me know if this was helpful for you. If you have any more questions, follow-up questions, happy to answer any of them. But I love you guys so much, and I hope you are taking care of yourselves and just finding like little ways to keep yourself more peaceful and grounded through this season. Okay, I love you guys so much. Bye.